I think we should be okay. Um, can you tell me what the construction site was like? What the new building is going to be like?
Sure. So 825 Tech Center Drive is the future home of the Gahanna Civic Center.
Hmm.
So we will all three buildings that are currently on our campus here at 200 South Hamilton Road
Yeah,
will be moving into one building. So we'll have our Gahanna Police Headquarters. You can hear the police in the background. City
I
Hall
didn't do it.
operations and our senior center will
Okay.
be all in one building. But was just over there touring that to see what the status of the construction is. It's moving along. And I just made the comment, I'm so excited. I'm excited for our citizens. I'm excited for our staff to have a professional environment. Right now, we literally have turned closets into offices because we don't have enough space. And, over there, we won't have to worry about plugging something in and hope it actually works because the building will all be really just modernized and prepared for the future. But the ease of delivery of services over there for citizens will be something like we don't have right here. So excited
Okay.
for the community.
It's City Hall has been here forever though. It's kind of bittersweet, right?
It is. It is. I mean, and certainly there, if you could restructure Gahanna and pick an ideal location for City Hall, would it be there? No, it wouldn't. But at the end of the day, Gahanna's built out at this point, and we found a building that worked. It just so happened that we were in the process of doing facility workshops with our council. We had a facility assessment that had been completed
Yeah.
and identified how short we were in actual space that we needed, that we just didn't have it, and then anticipating our projected future growth. And we stumbled across that building. We were actually looking for land for a police headquarters.
Okay.
And couldn't find it. There's very little land available here in Gahanna.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, right. And we drove past this big beautiful building that was sitting there empty with a sign on it, and said, we want to take a look at that building. And after we got inside and saw the condition of the building, saw how big it was, and really started to compare what our programmed needs were for the next 30 years, we recognized that building could encompass and meet the facility needs for all three of these operations.
Okay.
And do so at a price that was the same as just doing one police headquarters, if not less. So
Okay.
when we were pricing just building a police headquarters standalone, it was about $70 million, which is less than what we're spending for all three of these facilities in one.
I can't even think in terms of that much money. Like, I wanna keep talking for sure, but I would love to introduce who you are, even though a lot of people
Sure.
might know. This is Mayor Lori Jadwin, everybody, the mayor of Gahanna, Ohio, and she's honestly lovely. And I truthfully want to thank you for the job you do, because I was reading up on you a little bit and everything that's going on with Gahanna, all the utilization and modernization, and you guys have a tough job. You specifically have a tough job, so I want to commend you and thank you specifically.
I appreciate that. There are 200 people that work for this city every day, and I guarantee you, every single one of them comes to work every day, as do I, with the goal of making this community better for the residents and the people who do business here. And it's just a tremendous, tremendous staff. This community is very lucky to have the people working for them that they do, and probably at least half of our staff actually live in Gahanna too. So we're all, we're residents. We care about the community. We're just trying to make a difference.
Everybody's so warm and nice, and it honestly feels like you guys are supposed to stay here. So I'm not going to get into that, but I want to take people back a little bit and kind of talk about who you are, because they know your position. But I've met you outside of doing an interview or anything mayoral, and you're awesome.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank
you. I want to ask, like, when did you first realize you cared about people at such a deep level?
That's a great question, and I don't know that you realize it. I think it's something. In the position that I am now, and looking back, I realize I was learning that and growing in that with my own parents.
Okay.
My father was a public servant for most of his life. He, in fact, he was at the police academy when my mom went into labor with me. So he was a police officer.
Wow.
And then he served on a school board in the community where I grew up. He served on the council there. Then he became a district magistrate, which would be akin to a municipal court judge here. And then he was a state senator. And he was always about wanting to work for the people of the Mon Valley. I grew up in Pittsburgh. And my mom was one of seven. She was the youngest of seven in her family, and she was always taking care of somebody, one of my aunts or my uncles, one of my grandparents. And even to this day, she's 87. And I talked to her this morning, and she's making dinner for four of her friends who are, homebound and they can't get out. And I'm taking dinner to them. And I realize now that those values were being instilled at me during my whole life. And I don't know that I realized it until the opportunity came to, running for mayor. And I realize now that I was learning that public servant heart throughout my lifetime from them.
Yeah. Were you like this in school? I feel like people don't understand exactly what a mayor does, and B, how you get to a place of your position, and prestige. Sure. So what were you like? Did you run for student body? Did you have any aspirations?
I didn't run for, I can't remember back that far, Mark. Let me think. No, I mean, I was I don't know that I ran for student body, government in school. I went for a very small high school.
Okay.
In fact, I remember walking through the new Lincoln Elementary School when it opened.
Aww.
And they said, at capacity, we can hold up to 700 people. And I said, that was my whole high school. I think we had almost 200 people almost in my graduating class. So,
yeah.
But I was very active in school. I went to college on a 4-year academic and performing scholarship, and with a group called the Duquesne University Tamburitzans.
Duquesne.
Duquesne. There. Thanks. Yes. Not too many people, can say that I performed at Kennedy Center, and I had some tremendous experiences. So it was just all these things that I did in my lifetime. And actually in that role, we would do a show, and then we'd have a reception, and you're talking to an ambassador from Bulgaria, or
Oh my gosh!
But it was those kinds of experiences that really helped to form who you are. And it was my experience in the Tamburitzans when first of all, was being one of 40. So you're living with a group of other people traveling around the country on a Greyhound bus. Talk about living arrangements and, tolerating people of differing opinions and what have you. It was like, we lived that every single day, who's sharing the bathroom and what we're doing. But it was all of those things, I think that help prepare and shape you.
I think people don't know where or what Duquesne is because they can't spell it.
Duquesne. I get that a lot. Duquesne. It's not Duquesne.
Yeah. So from there, you kind of started formulating not necessarily who you are, but how you were going to express that to people.
Yeah, I think that certainly helped, that confidence to be able to speak to people that you don't know. Came a little bit from there, then going to law school, and the skill sets that you learn when you're in law school and practicing law, and for 27 years, maybe close to 30. And then it was Visit Gahanna, when becoming involved in Visit Gahanna.
Yeah.
And when you go to, a tourism show, and you're telling everybody how wonderful your city is, and it's gaining that level of being able to just start talking to people. And I remember one of the first trade shows we went to, and when I was with Visit Gahanna, and it was hard for me to just start going up to somebody as a stranger and just start talking to them. But now I love it.
I was like, you do realize that sounds almost impossible.
I know. Well, for me now it is. I talk to everybody now, and especially as a Pittsburghers talk to everybody growing up there. But yeah, I think it's all of the different experiences you have in your life prepare you in ways that you can't imagine.
Yeah, amen to that for sure. If you wouldn't mind walking with me a little bit, I'll take people back to the first time I met you. So I was running video for my church, and it was like a Toys for Tots type of thing. And
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, where was that? I remember, yes.
And I promise you, I had no clue who you were at all. And I'm sorry if that's a slight. But
that's not a slight.
At the same time, I want people to understand, literally how much you genuinely, don't exude exactly what your position is. So I'm going and I'm seeing you. I think you're just some regular lady, and I start talking to you, and you're like, I'm the mayor. I'm like,
I think you asked me what I was doing.
I did ask you what you were doing. That's true. I was like, what are you doing?
I was gift wrapping at the time, if I remember.
Yeah, you were like, I'm just supporting the city. I'm like, what do you do? You're like, well, I'm the mayor. I was like, of here? And you were like, yeah. I was like, let me do a fact check, a Carfax or whatever.
Well, and I think maybe that comes from my dad, and I remember we would go, oh gosh, we would go to the mall. Back when you had malls, back when you had malls, and we would walk in and we get 5 feet in the door, and somebody would stop my dad, and might want to talk to him about something, and my mom and I would stand there, and we'd go, we're going to go shop, and we'll come back, and we come back an hour later, and he's in the same exact position, and so I kind of just grew up with that, and I always remember thinking, it's just my dad. Why is everybody, making such a fuss? So, and he was just really humble about who he was, and just stayed true to who he was, and I always loved that about him, even though he was my dad. I love that about him, and I want to follow in that same way. Yeah. I mean, I do what I do because I care about the community and I love my city, and I just want to try to help. And it's not about a title; it's about what you do and what's in your heart.
Yeah. Dang, your dad sounds like an awesome person. Yeah, that would be
pretty special.
Yeah, I would have loved to meet him. Let's talk about how you got to know Gahanna, right? Mm-hmm. When did you first arrive and land here?
Back in officially Memorial Day weekend '92, and I know that because it was 2 weeks before our first daughter was born.
Oh,
so we signed. We were looking. My husband and I were living on the other side of town. And we were looking to start a family. Mm-hmm. We were going to build a house, and Gahanna was this new up and coming community. But we were always driving in the east direction because growing up in Pittsburgh, I was going back home to see my family. My husband grew up in Lancaster, so we were always heading down 33. Yeah. So we wanted to be on this side of the 270 outer belt. And we actually cut it 30 minutes off of our travel time just doing that. And we were talking with a builder. And they said, oh, we've got a model home out in Harrison Pond. You should go take a look at it. And I remember we pulled right down the main thoroughfare. I'm like, why are we not building in here? Like, we should just build here. And
your own home?
We built our house.
Okay.
Signed the contract on a Sunday, and I found out I was expecting our first child on Monday. Oh, wow. And then it was, what's going to be done first, the house or the baby? And the house was done 2 weeks before she was born.
That must have been stressful.
It was stressful, especially, yes, because I had bed rest during a period of my first pregnancy, and I couldn't pack anything. and then not being able to put things where you want to when you're actually moving. Yeah. And you had to tell everybody else where to put your stuff. That was frustrating.
Got to be a tastemaker instead of a doer.
That's right. And I'm not used. I'm a doer too. So that was hard for me. But
rest is good. I mean, especially with child.
I know that was special. So it's like that's how I was May 24th of 1992.
Yeah.
Both of our daughters were born and raised here. Our son-in-law's born and raised here. All Gahanna Lincoln graduates, and we were active in the schools all while they were growing up. My first foray into event planning was a family fun night at High Point. I ran Family Fun Night for a couple of years there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that that eventually lead the Blues and Jazz Fest. But those experiences, you never know what you're going to learn.
I mean, you don't seem like the type of person that like just falls into things. You have a pretty clear vision just by being around you.
Yeah, I kind of jump in with both feet. I remember getting the phone call of Gail and Fred Wood ran the Blues and Jazz Festival for the first early years. And I remember getting a phone call. I could still picture sitting at my desk. I can't even tell you what I was wearing.
Getting a phone call on a landline?
I got a phone call on a landline. Yeah, go figure. And, and they wanted somebody to volunteer to run a new community stage as part of the Blues and Jazz Festival. And they had called St. Matthew's Church, where I was volunteering. I was running the youth choir there. I'm like, we should have a youth choir. I'll volunteer to run the youth choir. And they had called there to see if they knew anybody who was involved in music that could help volunteer for this community stage. And so Gail called, and that old line of, well, you don't just come to one meeting. If you don't like it, you don't have to come back. And by the end, I went to the first meeting, and by the end of the night, I was like, "Oh, here's who we could do. We could do this. We could do this. We could do this." And that was
the
start.
Baited you.
She did. And that gotcha. Mm-hmm. And that's how that started. But that was a tremendous experience too.
Yeah, I can hear literally everybody screaming at me right now to ask you more questions. So again, be patient, guys. We're getting there. So when you became mayor,
Mhm.
Was it did you experience a lot of pushback, especially like the time you became mayor? There's a lot going on, a lot of contention.
Mhm.
What was that like for you?
So help me with pushback from.
Well, pushback in terms of, being who you are, being the mayor of a city in general. I feel like that comes with a lot of flack. Also being a woman, you know what I mean? Did you experience any of that, or was it smooth sailing?
I wouldn't say it was smooth sailing because
Okay.
I took office in January of 2020.
Yeah, literally.
And it was 70 days on the dot from the night of swearing in to the night of Governor DeWine's press conference announcing the shutdown
Wow.
of everything in the state, and what was happening with what we now know as the COVID pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't smooth sailing. I remember that press conference, and at midnight that night, I was still sitting in my office with Miranda Vollmer, who's now our senior director
Nice.
of administrative services. But we were going through the list of our employees. Who's essential, who needs to go home, how are we going to equip people to work from home, and making sure that we're keeping city services running, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what's happening outside of this building. Our job is to make sure that people's lives can continue and that they're getting those essential services. So working through all of that, within those first few days and first few weeks, it really was a team effort. And I was relatively new here as mayor. I knew a lot of the people who worked here from my previous role,
Yeah.
but not in this capacity. So we were all getting to know one another in that capacity, and talk about team bonding that first year. By Monday,
imagine.
everybody was at home, and the directors and I were the only ones in the building for the next year and a half.
Would you say like that tested you more than anything? Because when people talk about COVID in 2020, even up to 2022, they were like, no, life changed in every single way I could imagine.
It did indeed, and you think about what life was like in 2019 and versus what it is today,
Mm-hmm.
in every aspect. That pandemic has changed the entire world. But in hindsight, when I look back on it, it wasn't as taxing as you might think it was. It was in the sense
Really?
of worrying about the economy and our businesses not being open and all of that. But from a human standpoint, because it was actually unifying, because every person, all the community leaders, all the mayors, all the city managers, all of the directors from every municipality, everybody from the state government on down, and we're trying to follow the federal government, but nobody knew what was coming. We didn't know what we were dealing with. We were all in it together, and we were relying upon one another to share information. What are you doing? How are you handling this? And there was a camaraderie that existed. And we were, again, just trying to figure it out, and trying to anticipate we didn't know what was coming next, but trying to anticipate plan A, plan B, plan C, depending on what was going to happen. But again, there was a unifying sense throughout all of that, that in hindsight, now looking back to where we are, on everything from the federal level on down, with the dialogue and our inability to communicate, that didn't exist then. And because everybody was relying, and working together.
I'm fascinated, like, because getting thrown into something like that, a global pandemic, would have pushed me to my absolute limit. But you're sitting here on the other side, right? And you like rose like a phoenix. Not only that, like I was here in Gahanna around that time. The city did keep moving. There was a lot of regulations that got put in that, didn't make sense at the time in terms of like, on a global federal level, right, why are they pushing this to us? Right. But you guys did an awesome job.
Well, thank you. It was you gathered information. You made the best decisions that you could.
Yeah.
Now I think about things like, remember when we opened the pool, I think in 21, and we had 6 foot crop circles on the grass, and you had to maintain 6 feet within from, like, what were we doing? But that was the information that we had at the time, right? Yeah. That was what was coming from the state level and the recommendations. And we were all just trying to figure it out at that time. There, certainly the global mandates that were happening, the governor was a tremendous leader, whether you agreed with him or not. He really made it easier for local leaders like me, because he took a lot of that on himself and issued mandates for us that I'm not a health expert. I don't know what to do. So I was, being asked to make health decisions. And the governor took that out of our hands for us, and issued those directives that we could then follow.
Yeah.
So, I really commend what he did and how he led the state of Ohio through that time. For us, some of the biggest questions and biggest challenges that we had were, understanding our business community.
Yeah.
I didn't have a list of, here's all of the businesses in Gahanna that you can call and you can reach out to. We were trying to understand where they were, when they closed, were they going to reopen, what they needed to reopen, what kind of resources we could provide for them. Then you had people who maybe were worrying about paying their rent because they weren't working, and what did that look like? And we received, if I remember that first year, $1 million. How much did we receive? Almost $3 million in CARES dollars, and we put close to $1 million back into the community through rental assistance programs. We paid people's mortgages. We helped businesses stay in their place, and again, making sure that we were keeping our community going forward.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a disconnect between the people of Gahanna and City Hall?
Well, sometimes. I mean, people are busy, and there's, you think about how many demands people have on their time. Everything from work to kids and kids activities, and ailing parents, and people are running in multiple different directions. And I hear a lot about, well, ever since the newspaper went away, we don't know what's going on, and we are constantly trying to identify new ways to communicate with residents. But then you think about the information that people are just flooded with on a daily basis, social media and TV and radio and all the digital platforms that exist, that people are just have this influx of information.
Yeah.
So how do you make your voice heard when they're hearing all of these other voices around them? And so that's, all of those things I think can contribute to a disconnect. It's just because people only have so much time and they only have so much bandwidth.
Yeah.
And priorities are, where do I need to, how do I get my kids' homework done and get them to soccer practice and, get to work the next morning versus wondering what they're doing at City Hall today. So, it's hard, it's just hard. So trying to find that balance, and trying to find ways where we can meet people where they are and give them the information that they think is important is something we're constantly trying to work on.
Yeah, I think it's easier to be uninformed. I mean? It's easy to say and have an opinion or a comment about how well the government's running, but if you actually go to, the website or listen to any of the hearings, you guys are discussing how to keep us running as a city at a high level, and I think it's just easier for people to tune out of that sometimes. I feel like you're doing the right thing by meeting people where they are. Ohio is very old media, so that is true. When the newspaper went away, a lot of people were out of the loop. Right. But I feel like people listen a lot better than they see, if that makes sense.
Sure it does. And the way people consume information has changed. Talking about the pandemic, you think, prior to 2020, a lot of in-person meetings, everybody's, newspapers, all these things, and now we're 5 years removed from that. And people, you get more out of watching a quick little video on social media than you do with the newspaper. You can't find a newspaper anymore. Everything's digital. Yeah. So the way people consume their information has changed drastically. So we constantly have to be evolving what we're doing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I did do my research too, and you guys are doing that. I wanted to, because we've been talking about pandemics and everything like that.
It seems like another lifetime ago at this point.
It's just... It honestly was. Like you look back and you wanna kind of, it feels like 10, 15 years ago, but you really take a step back and you're like, that was like 3-4 years ago. We're still reeling from that or thriving from that, or however you want to slice it. But we've been speaking about like birth and transition and placement and everything like that, and Gahanna has a lot of that. I was reading some of the CIP and just some of the demographics, and it's really shifted even from when I got here around I don't remember, 03, 04. So it had to have shifted from when you first got here. What have you seen in Gahanna that's really impressed you, about the people or the community?
Oh, I love our community.
They are awesome.
Our,
Truthfully.
it is, it is just, it's just this welcoming place. And that sounds cheesy, and I don't mean it to be. I
It's
remember
not a cliche.
No, I remember somebody used the word quirky on social media once, and people got mad. But I'm like, well, but that's kind of us. It's like everybody has a place here.
Yeah.
You can find your people, no matter who your people are. You can find them here because we're so diverse. Everything from age, race, culture, interest. Everybody's got a place here, and everybody's welcome here. And we did a piece with Columbus Monthly. I think it was back in 23, where we did like an advertising. It was last year, I don't remember. And we sat down with an editor, and it was a kind of a marketing piece for Gahanna.
Mm-hmm.
And the editor was, met with us to talk about. Dan Perlman and I were in the meeting, our communications manager. And
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Dan. And the editor said, well, what's different about Gahanna than all these other communities?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's our personality. And she kind of looked at me.
That's a great answer.
And I said, well, we have personality. It's just this fun, diverse, quirky, just there's something for everybody here. But then I said, but Gahanna's heart. Gahanna has the heart of the people of Gahanna, to me, is unlike any other community. Mm-hmm. And you especially right now, and there's a lot of consternation and concern around what's happening with the federal shutdown and what impact that's going to have to families and students and being able to eat and things like that. And the donations are already coming in. But Grin puts a need up on their social media page, and within 3 hours it's filled.
Wow.
Somebody's house. We had a house fire maybe a year ago.
I remember that.
Remember that? Yeah. On the west side?
Yeah.
It was in a morning, and a family lost everything. And I think the firefighters were still on the scene, and I was on the phone calling Ron Smith at Neighborhood Bridges, and there were people on Facebook organizing donation drives and just trying to help and lift up that family. And Gahanna does that time and time again.
Truthfully.
And they never get tired of doing it. And it's just amazing to me.
Yeah. Well, people, I could honestly tear up thinking about it. Like, people, they're like, oh, you guys care too much. You know what I mean?
How can you care too much? How can you care too much?
Yeah. When you look at your neighbor and you see them going through something and you're right next to them, you don't want to do something about that or help or get a resource. Like, you don't want to say shame on you because there's genuine reasons why. But at the same time, like, you look at a place like Gahanna and it's fascinating how counterculture it is. Everything's me in America or the world in general on social media. And you go to that Gahanna and there's like, I love you all, seriously. But there's like 23,000 people in there that genuinely care. Mm-hmm. Even if it's little things and they have concerns and they ask why and they get the answer, even if it's an anonymous member. So I'm glad that you recognize that too, because I feel like you embody a lot of that care that the citizens have.
I think, and I appreciate that. Thank you for that. That means a lot. But I think I think that's prevalent throughout our community. From the multitude of nonprofit organizations, and all of the elected leaders, in the city. Everybody's here because they care. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, I think people feel like we get removed from that because we have a title behind our name or in front of our name, and it's like we're all here because we care. And again, I just, it's funny. I'm just thinking you mentioned Gahanna in the know, but how many times you see, even issues outside of Gahanna when there's disasters that happen, and you see, hey, I'm organizing a drive. We're gonna, we're collecting food, or we're collecting this to go put on a truck to go take to, some area that's been hit by a hurricane or a tornado or whatever it is. Gahanna's there. They're there.
There's even a coordinated walk to like pick up trash.
Yes,
day too. I remember that.
Yes, yeah. Make Gahanna yours. We have a nonprofit that organizes community cleaner, greener Gahanna community litter pickups. Yeah. Got to think about the long name, but
the quirky thing works. I love it.
but it's they do it 4 times a year, and in fact, they just did one 2 weeks ago. I volunteered as a member of Rotary, and and people are out there with their pickers, and they're going down the sidewalks, or they're in the park. And heck, there's a resident that she goes out on her own, and she just goes to some of the parks and picks up the trash because she cares. There's a lady that walks along Morse Road with a wagon and her trash picker, and she just picks up trash that she sees because she cares. And you got people on the west side that Jason and Colleen Rourke that organize the Easter Bunny and the Santa Claus drives and other things for the community because they care.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on. I hate listing people because then you end up not listing somebody. But gosh, the list goes on forever.
Yeah, even with the churches, even with the schools, even with the after school programs, there's a lot of care. And I just feel like if people were to be here as long as you and I have, no matter how you feel about what's going on, they'd actually be able to say that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's important for you to say it because they hear you and your opinion matters. Your comments matter.
Well, I hope I can lead by example.
Yeah.
And I always tell people I'm not going to ever ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't be willing to do myself.
Right.
That's why I'm at every community event. I'm not going to ask my staff to show up and staff at 10 if I'm not going to be standing there alongside them from 8 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or whatever the hours of the event are. We're going to be there, and I'm going to be there with them because it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. No, a true consummate professional and a leader. Like, I've heard that you have like almost a photographic memory.
I wouldn't say that. Sometimes I can't remember. Like, why did I come in this room? I don't. Just,
yeah.
Like, sometimes I walk to Dan's office and go, I forgot what I was going to ask you. I'll come back.
But Dan's awesome. Like, I'm sure he knows exactly and is very graceful about it. Yeah. But I was doing some.
Oh, look, Dan's graceful.
I wish you guys could see him right now. Yeah, I love Dan. And Jim was really nice too. Everybody, just from when I first walked in, I got nothing but smiles. Nobody asked me what I was doing because they don't ask the cameraman that. But at the same time, they were like,
I'm surprised you didn't get asked you walk in with a camera. But
yeah, pretty confidential stuff going on. I wanted to talk because I was doing a bunch of research about this thing called our Gahanna and CIP. Is it
Capital Improvement Plan, CIP?
Yeah.
Right.
And I was going through, and I saw the demographics of how diverse Gahanna is getting, and how the houses are increasing. But homelessness is kind of increasing too. All that good stuff. If I'm fudging some of that up, I'm sorry. But could you explain what Our Gahanna is?
Sure. So the Our Gahanna initiative is the city's strategic plan and economic development strategy. So really it is, I think, an essential document for any city to have. Every city has one, but it really embodies the community's collective vision for what they want Gahanna to be.
Yeah.
So that when we bring projects forward, or when we identify projects, we can say that, well, we're doing this project because the community has told us they want this, and making sure that when we are investing money into, again, whether it's project or roadway, whatever, that we are doing so because the community has said we want the community to be this.
Yeah.
And if in order to get this, we have to do A, B, C, and D. So it's creating that roadmap for us that guides how we invest dollars and how we operate each day in terms of the services that we're providing.
That makes sense. And again, there was astronomical numbers there. And somebody asked me to ask you, like, where does all that money come from and how does it get reinvested?
Sure. You're talking about money that the city operates on?
Right.
Sure. So the first of all, I would encourage anybody, we are just starting the budget process right now. We had our first budget workshop with council on the 23rd of October. We had discussed the capital budget this past Monday. All of those meetings are live streamed, and they will be continuing until the budget gets voted and adopted. The last meeting in December, which I think is December 15th. And there's public hearings also associated with that. So people can watch the meetings. They can come to the meetings. They can speak to the budget. But the budget document is about this thick. And our finance director is an award-winning finance director. She's been recognized from the State Association and from the Government Finance Officers Association for the reporting that she does. the budget book is written in a way that anybody can pick it up and follow along and understand how every single dollar in this city is spent.
Yeah, and it was
it's
pretty
available
easy
online. You can follow it along. And that being said, watching these budget discussions, we will go through every single department in terms of what the proposed projects are, and what's planned for the next year. So part of the question you just asked me is, where does money come from? So income tax collections are the largest source of revenue for the city. That comes from people who work in the city and the businesses who do business here. So every business that operates here has to pay tax on their net profits.
Yeah.
And then every employee who works in the city pays withholding, and that is the largest bucket of revenue that we have. And then there's several other buckets that we receive, charges for services, when you do your Parks and Recs programming, those types of things. We get a portion of gas tax from the state, so local government money from the state. So there's a variety of funds. All of those we could be here all night just talking about those.
Yeah.
But all of those are explained in the budget book, as to where those monies come from and then how they're invested.
Yeah, and I did read a lot of those pages of the improvement plan, and it was pretty easy to follow. And if you guys, care enough, I would go through and parse through everything because they go darn near road to road, about what to improve on, especially with like Creekside and everything like that.
Sure.
Yeah,
I was going to go back to, sorry, because you mentioned the capital improvement plan.
Yeah.
And you were asking me how that was funded. So
Mhm.
I think it's really important to note that back in May of 2019, there was an issue on the ballot called Issue 12, and that took our income tax from 1.5% to 2.5%.
Okay.
So of that 1% increase, 75% of that 1% increase can only be used for capital projects. It must be used for capital investments. So, everything from roads, rebuilding, repaving roads, our facilities, which includes not only the building we're sitting in right now, but all of our parks facilities, those types of things. And then the balance of that other 25% of that 1% increase, it must be used, is go into special revenue funds that are to be used for public safety, public service, or parks and recreation to support the operations of those three divisions. So those monies really have what led us to develop the capital improvement plan, because now what the CIP for short is that creates a list of the projects that we have and helps us to prioritize them. And one of the things that I really wanted to make sure that we were doing as we did that is, how were we envisioning all of the projects that were coming down the road? Because what I didn't want was, one year we go through and we rebuild a road, and then 2 years from now the engineering department goes, you know what, that's got an old water line, we need to dig up that roadway, and we just put $500,000 into the road. Why are we going to do that? So trying to envision and anticipate all of the projects so that we can stack them appropriately, and making sure that we are maximizing those taxpayer dollar investments so that we are using them most effectively. And the capital improvement plan does that for us.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a good plan when I was watching the council meeting and reading it myself. It's just a lot of numbers. I'm not too much of a numbers guy, but what I am is like very people oriented, and a lot of people are seeing these numbers and seeing Creekside being reimagined, and seeing all the articles, and I hear a lot of feedback of like, hey, I don't want to lose what Gahanna is to me. I don't want to lose that care.
Neither do I.
Why do you think people feel that way when they see Creekside getting reimagined, or the Our Gahanna plan, or the improvement plan being thrown around? Because it's pretty much just revitalizing what's already here.
Sure. So I'm going to separate a little bit. Our Gahanna, the strategic plan for the city that sets the overall objectives for what people want for Gahanna. So that really that sets the character for who Gahanna is, right? Okay. We want to be a walkable community. We want to be a connected community. Whatever that is, that's laid out within our Gahanna. The CIP or the projects that then help to get to those objectives that the community has told us through our Gahanna they want to have.
Right.
So that's over here. So I don't know that changing the character of Gahanna has to do with our Gahanna or the CIP. Now, to the question of, as we're talking about the projects for Creekside that
Mhm.
they're being discussed right now, I understand. I understand why there are people who are concerned. Is this going to change Gahanna? The answer is yes. It will to a point. It's not going to change who we are. It's not going to change that care and the character that we have within our community. Is it going to change a block of the Creekside district and look a little bit different? Potentially, yes, it will. But is that a bad thing? Because Mill Street today isn't the same as it looked 30 years ago. Doesn't
True.
look the same as when I moved here. There was a Clark gas station and an old Kroger that was the old post office, and that's gone.
Yeah.
That left a long time ago. And if you go back even further, those things weren't there.
Mhm.
You have to constantly be evolving and changing. What we do know from Creekside, as we went through our Gahanna for the past year, was reaffirmed to us. Creekside has its own chapter in the Our Gahanna strategic plan because it was the number one thing that people in this community talked about when they talked about what they wanted for Gahanna. And I can tell you, I remember being here when Creekside opened, and I remember, and I can still see all the posts on social media through the years of what's wrong with Creekside. Why can't we keep any businesses at Creekside? Why doesn't the city do something with Creekside? It's been a drumbeat that has just been going on for years and years and years.
Slow drumbeat. Yeah.
And even when I was back at Visit Gahanna, I was bringing experts in, economic development experts, placemaking experts. Take a look at Creekside. What are we missing here? What do we need? So this project that has been proposed is consistent with everything that we've heard from the community for years. But it's also consistent with what economic development experts have told us that area needs to be successful.
Yeah.
So we have two choices. We can either let it be as it is, which is not successful and failing, or we can do something to try to make it that vibrant, vital place that the community is telling us they want it to be. So the project that's being proposed is informed by what the community has told us and what the private development community and the economic development experts have told us the area needs.
There was a lot of input too, right?
There was a lot of input.
I think I read something that said there was like over 5,000 pieces of input from the community. Just
like through our Gahanna?
Right.
Yes, but it absolutely, definitely. So when I talk about Creekside being reaffirmed or having that message reaffirmed by our community about wanting Creekside to be successful, that certainly came through loud and clear over the past year as we went through our Gahanna.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had input years before that.
Right.
We did a Creekside redevelopment strategy. We started it in June of 21, finished it, and I think we unveiled it in May of 22. We did a whole public town hall here. And developing that strategy involved community surveys. Before that, there were surveys that were done before I became mayor around what do you want to see the community to be. We've done surveys through our Parks Master Plan. There are so many ways that we collect community input. We did our zoning code,
Mm-hmm.
which was just a brand new zoning code adopted in last year. I think it adopted in April of 24, went into effect May of 2024. That was a 3-year project that involved community input throughout those 3 years. So we collect a lot of feedback from people in many, many different ways, all of which help to inform what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And that's why I was asking about the disconnect a little earlier, because when stuff gets posted by the city of Gahanna, there's like an immediate whiplash of why didn't I know about this? So I'm glad you're detailing how many people actually gave their input about it. Yeah, I think that's super important. So is it going to look different? Will the roads be different? Will the infrastructure of how it's set up be different for Creekside?
I don't know if the roads can look different because it's not like we can widen the roads. At least everybody, first of all, when we're talking about roads, we're talking about Mill Street, right? Because that's the section that we're talking about right now. And that is US 62. It's US 62. It's not just Mill Street. It's US 62, which means that, we need ODOT before any changes could be made to any roadways through there because it's not just our road. But as right now, the development agreement is what is pending before council. Assuming the development agreement would be voted on and the project would be moving forward, it then would begin probably a year-long process of development review from the planning department, engineering, public safety, I actually think I saw somebody saying, well, did police and fire, are they aware of these plans? Yes, they're aware of the project, but the in-depth review would happen in the next phase.
Right.
So this is just a development agreement that says, yes, we want to support this project being made, and here's what the terms would be. But then the actual project itself would then have to go through the evaluation process. That would be lengthy.
Thank you for explaining that context, because when stuff gets put out, and again on social media,
shovels aren't coming next week.
Yeah, literally.
Right.
So I'm glad you put that context to it, because people just want to feel safe, and they want to have access to the same stuff that they've had for years.
Absolutely, and that won't change. Right?
Yeah. So with this next phase, how can people continue to support or give their input?
Sure. So we have we set up, as part of this process, there's a public hearing Monday, November 3rd, for people to come in and offer comments on Creekside. We set up an email, creekside@gahanna.gov, for people to submit questions that we monitor and can answer that. We have a website that will be launched hopefully by the end of this week, that we will have all kind of background information and links to every meeting and conversation that have happened through the years about Creekside, that people can go and learn and understand, how did we get to where we are today and what's next.
Awesome. I can't wait. And I'm going to try and get some PTO off of work, seriously, so I can come and be at some of this. Another thing that people wanted me to ask you, it was a lot of comments, man. Seriously, like I couldn't read all of them, but the stuff that I was seeing was very important. Safety, and obviously safety is important for everybody, no matter creed, color, religion, whatever. We can agree that we want to be safe. And it may be because of like who I am, just being a man, being able to walk around, but a lot of people, including men, were telling me that they wanted it to be more safe for the next generation and for people that are older. Where do you see any of that concern, or is that a concern for this next phase? Like, is that an integral part in what's going on, or is it just supreme development, and through that development it has to be safer? Is that making sense?
You're talking about the community as a whole?
Right.
So what I would say is public safety is always the number one priority, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a safe community, businesses aren't going to want to do business in your community, and people aren't going to want to live in your community, right? So if we can't ensure that people feel safe living here, working here, playing here, then why are we here? Right. So and that's why public safety is the largest portion of our budget. So investing in our police officers, investing in making sure that they have the training that they need and the resources that they need is something that we have focused on. And thanks to issue 12 and some of that special revenue fund I talked about, we've been able to invest a lot into our police division. And the 825 building, the new Gahanna New Civic Center, is a huge step forward for them in that aspect as well. Just the training capabilities that they will have over there that they currently don't have, right. And the ability to use that as a marketing tool, to recruit the best top talent to become officers here. That building will be that for them as well. But I think I say all of that to highlight the importance that we have done in investing in public safety. Gahanna is a very safe community. That doesn't mean that we are immune. We have on the borders of Columbus on our west side, and Columbus is the 14th largest city by populace in the nation. Mm-hmm. Big cities tend to have big problems sometimes. True. And so, True. That's a good point. But we do our best to make sure that what we're doing here, that our officers are engaged within the community, that they know the community, and they take great pride in the work that they do in keeping everybody safe here too.
Thanks for saying that, because I know on an individual level, when I talk to people, and even I do feel that to a huge extent, but you start looking at the vast majority and it's like, where are those plot holes for everybody else? Mm-hmm. So I thank you for that, for sure.
No, I think part of it is also proactive, right? It's like, how do you get to problems before they become problems? So, one of the things we've been able to add are community liaison officers. So we have 2 of those now, and their job is to provide that bridge with the community and the Division of Police. So you think about a lot of times if an officer responds to a call, sometimes it could be a mental health call, or if it's a family in crisis, and the officer responds, and the family really has a need for some additional resources or more help than you can give them in that time before you have to, oh, I've got another call, I've got to go run, and now I've got to go over here. That community liaison officer can be that bridge.
Yeah.
Or, hey, somebody calls and says, hey, I'm worried about my neighbor, or there's a teacher, hey, I'm noticing this, can you come and help?
It would be like an actual police officer?
They're two
Okay.
police officers,
Yeah.
but their roles are to be community liaisons and to be that bridge between the Gahanna Division of Police and members in the community who might need that extra help, where they can be more proactive in that approach.
And there's with the next phase, or is it already being implemented? Like, is there a lot of training that's going on how to be that? Because that's tough.
Oh, we've had it for now. I think 2023 is when we started the program.
That's awesome.
We started with one officer. Now we have 2 officers, and they're doing a great job out in the community. And then we of course have our school resource officers. We have 4 of them. 3 of them that are assigned to Gahanna Lincoln High School, and one of those rotates to some of the other schools, our private and public schools here in the city. And then the 4th officer actually is now in our elementary and middle schools, offering classes and building relationships too.
Yeah.
So offering that concern and really that mentorship that comes, because those officers in the school end up forming friendships and with those students, and sometimes those officers can be great role models for those students over there, and it tears down some of those the misperceptions that people have, but they get to know who the officers are as humans,
as people,
absolutely. Right? And they stay in touch with those officers for years after they graduated. I remember the school resource officers from when my kids were at Gahanna Lincoln High School, because they were that involved in that present, and that's important.
It is. I mean, dude, I'm learning so much. I wanted to talk about learning a little bit more too, as far as like school infrastructure, and with all this new development, how is that going to affect our children? How will it affect people getting to school? How will it affect people learning? How will it affect after school programs? Are those things being talked about in these phases? How will schools be affected by all this revitalization?
Sure. So we always take our schools into consideration with what we do. I know sometimes I see questions around apartments and you're going to overrun the schools, and actually that's the exact opposite. Data will support that schools are actually less impacted by multifamily developments than they are by single family neighborhoods. And if you think about that, apartments are 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, sometimes studio apartments. The people moving into apartments tend to be the young professionals that are, just graduating, they're starting their career, they're not ready to buy a home yet, or they're for people on the other end of that kind of lifespan spectrum who, and I'd be one of them, but I've got a 4-bedroom house, I don't need it anymore, but where do I move in the community? So those kind of empty nester folks that aren't ready to go live in a senior living facility, but want to downsize, and they want to be in an area where they can leave their apartment, walk downstairs, and walk across the street to go to a restaurant or go shopping or do whatever, which tend to be where the multifamily developments are, in those walkable, connected places. So schools really aren't impacted in terms of the number of kids, but they are impacted because multifamily developments are actually taxed as commercial entities. So they pay a higher rate of property tax than a single family community would. So a single family residence is taxed at a residential property rate, whereas a multifamily development is taxed at a commercial rate. So a multifamily development is going to bring less kids and higher property taxes that benefit the schools. So they actually help the schools.
I did not know that.
I know a lot of people don't. I know. And I first learned that I was at an economic development seminar. It's called ED 411 that One Columbus and Jobs Ohio put on every year. And there was a superintendent from the Olentangy district up there, Orange Township, and which was exploding. I think they're on like high school number 35 now. I don't know. Wow. I'm exaggerating, but I mean they've had tremendous growth through the years. And he said, and I remember him saying, standing in front of the room, and he said, "I'll take apartments any day." He said, because I get the property taxes and no kids. And I went, oh. didn't think about it that way.
It almost seems inverse of like what people expect when they come into Gahanna. People want the white picket fence, 2.5 kids, whatever that is, in the house. But that information is important because I feel like that adjustment is where not only Gahanna but Columbus and America is going, and that to me sometimes it feels like a too big of a shift. Even from what I'm used to. That's hard for people though.
It is. It is hard, and change is always hard too. And to get people to understand, we have to continue to grow. That doesn't mean we need to grow exponentially, even if it's just a little bit of growth. But the Columbus region is growing, and we're part of the Columbus region, whether we like that or not.
Yeah.
And we all know what the conversation is around the lack of housing in the region, and how we have to add that. I mean, the data says that we should be adding, the Columbus region, and again, we're part of that.
The city of Columbus,
the city of Columbus and the municipalities around us that support that should be adding 20,000 household units a year. I think last year we added 10,000. So we're not keeping up with the demand, And you read a lot too in Gahanna around housing prices. And I look at the last 5 or 6 years at how much housing prices have skyrocketed, not just in Gahanna, but all over Central Ohio and all over the state of Ohio, as I'm learning as well. But it's a supply and demand. It's a basic economics issue. Supply is high, supply is low, demand is high. I'm saying it backwards. Supply is low, demand is high. And when you have that, that's when your prices are going to drive up. And I referenced earlier a little bit about what I call kind of lifespan housing. Mm-hmm. So we have this we have this thing happening in the state where we have our young students are leaving, and the governor talks about it. And we have our kids that grow up here in Ohio, they go to college, and then they leave Ohio and they don't come back. So, and that's not just Ohio. I mean, that's Gahanna's part of that, and we're seeing that here too. My own kids graduated and left, and they live in North Carolina, and because there wasn't anything for them to come back here for in terms of the jobs, in terms of living opportunities for what they wanted as young professionals. We need to be able to add that housing so that we keep our residents here at every stage of life. So when they're growing up as a young family, when they graduate, they have that young professional housing where they just want to live in an apartment and they want to have all the modern amenities that everybody else is offering in every community around us. And then when they're ready to start a family or move into a home, there's a home available for them, which means people like me who have a home need to have that empty nester housing available so I can move out of my home and another family can move in. And then the senior living facility after that. So apartments tend to fill those two gaps on that front end and the back end. And that's part of the problem that we've had is we're missing those gaps. So it's not just building apartments to build apartments, it's building to what we need in the community to fill the need that we have in the community. And so that's when we look to add, and whether it's housing or businesses or whatever, we're not just adding to because it's there. There's a reason why we're doing it.
That honestly makes me feel better. Like seriously, because you see all the apartments and everything getting put up, and it's like, what's happening to our city? So thank you for that.
Sure.
I do know you have to go. I'm not going to keep you forever. You're not a gunpoint, I promise. But is there anything,
I always enjoy talking to you, Mark. It's all right.
Appreciate that. Hopefully you come back and we do this again at a certain point.
Sure.
Is there anything you would want to say to the citizens of Gahanna or anybody that would aspire to be somebody like you one day?
Sure. Oh, it's just get engaged. It really is easy. It really is easy to do that. We have so many different ways that we share information with people, from 12 different social media sites. I mean, the city of Gahanna, the Parks and Rec Department, and Gahanna Division of Police each have Facebook, X, whatever X is, and and Instagram. And then we've got LinkedIn. We've got a website. We have emails, email alerts you can sign up for. We have a city newsletter, a Parks and Recreation newsletter, a senior center newsletter. I mean, we're doing our own podcast, not to compete with you, but we're getting ready to start our own podcast series so that we can find another way to share information with residents. We now put inserts when the newspaper went away. We now do a print newsletter that goes in every water bill, and those are posted online as well. I mean, there's so much information that's out there. I would encourage residents, if you have a question, if you have a concern, we're here to answer those questions. Sign up to get, sign up to get the newsletter, or open your water bill. if it comes in the mail, open it up and read it.
Please
I yelled
open
at
your
my husband said something. I'm like, there's your water bill. There's your read the newsletter. It's right there. Don't ask me. But I'm in the office 5 days a week. And I work 60 to 70 hours Monday through Friday every week. I'm here 8 a.m. to typically 8 p.m. every day, if not later, unless there's an event someplace else. I'm at every community event as well. So those are my constituent hours. I'm here every day in my office for the residents of Gahanna. You can reach out by email. And I would say, if somebody ever reaches out by email and doesn't get an answer, it's possible we didn't even get it. Because sometimes our firewalls are so strong, especially after there's been so many breaches, in other municipalities around the nation. Our firewalls are pretty strong. And sometimes they can reject an email. So I would just encourage somebody, if you ever sent an email and didn't get an answer, I may not have ever seen it. I never. Just give us a call. It's quite possible it got lost someplace, because we do try to get back to folks as quickly as we can and as much as we can. So just reach out, and it doesn't have to be to me. We've got tremendous directors here that run every department that are devoted to their teams. You can reach out to them. You have council members. That's what we're here for. Just ask a question. Get the information, and don't just assume the worst. We're all here because we're caring. We're trying to make a difference. Just ask us.
Yeah, Lori, thank you. Seriously, I do know you got a deadline, but thank you for everything you do. Thank you, Dad. Seriously, man, it's awesome. But you have a tough job, and for you to take your time and to long form explain some of these things that people have genuine questions about, I appreciate it.
No, thanks for your time. Thanks for your questions, and always happy to talk to you and to our residents. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you around. And then I'll see you guys later at a different time. Who knows? Bye. Yeah. Cool.